I'm Jessie Heredia, and you're listening to Soul Care for the New Mom, a podcast designed with new moms in mind, where we talk about what it looks like to thrive in motherhood as the free, confident, joy-filled women God has called us to be. Hey friends, I'm so glad that you are tuning in today. Before we jump into my conversation with Diana Kerr, who I will be introducing to you in a minute, I do just want to go ahead and invite you to my Soul Care for the New Mom Facebook group. Now, this is a free community of us moms who are, we're in the same season of motherhood. We're trying to grow in our faith. We're wanting to be encouraged. We're wanting to feel empowered. And here's what I guarantee you. When you join my Facebook group, you will be surrounded with other women who are hungry in the same way that you are. And I mean hungry for freedom, hungry for joy, hungry for confidence. I love when I show up live in my Facebook group to give you guys either a training or a workshop or just to offer some strategies and tools to help push you forward. And I love when I see in the comments that you guys are banding together, literally encouraging each other and supporting one another. And that's exactly the kind of community that I've dreamt of building. So if you are interested in joining, you can go ahead and click the link in the show notes, or you can type in Soul Care for the New Mom in your Facebook app and find our Facebook group. This is just a great community, and I really do hope that you join. Now, let me tell you a little bit about our guest for today. Diana Kerr is a life coach, and specifically for go-getter Christian women, which resonates with me because I think that I'm one of those women, and maybe you are too. What I love about my conversation with Diana is that we talk a bit about spiritual warfare. We talk about lies that Christian women are believing today, especially when it comes to pursuing their goals or pursuing what God has for them. We talk about busyness and how it can be easy to feel overwhelmed in the busyness, and what it looks like to find freedom from that, and just also how to surrender your motherhood journey and surrender your business journey to God. It really is it's so encouraging to get to hear from another woman who just has this passion for encouraging and inspiring women in the ways that they're being called by God or are being equipped by God to do great things. So I have no doubt in my mind that you are going to love this conversation with Diana. If you would, go ahead and take a screenshot of this right now, of you listening to this podcast, and go ahead and put it in your Instagram stories and tag me at Soul Care for the New Mom, because I want to know that you're listening, and I also want to know, how is this encouraging you? Is this speaking to you in some way? Is it pushing you in a different direction? Is it maybe encouraging you in an area where you've been feeling alone or discouraged? It really does mean so much to me when I get to hear from my listeners and get to see that you guys are listening. So I would love if you would do that. And as always, I also would appreciate a review, because this definitely helps other moms find the podcast in their Apple Podcast app. So if you haven't already, please feel free to leave an iTunes review. All right, without further ado, let's dive into my conversation with Diana. Hi, Diana. Welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Hey, Jessie. I'm awesome. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Very busy, but doing well. I'm really excited to get to talk to you. I know that we
Me
just chatted a
too.
little bit before, and oh gosh, I just feel like you have so much good insight that you're going to be giving us today. So I'm really excited.
That's very kind. I love what your podcast is about. It's such a great message.
Thank you. Will you tell the listeners a little bit about who you are? What is your family, and what does this season of life look like for you right now?
Of course. Yeah, I live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin with my husband Kyle and our 2-year-old Harrington, and also trying to grow our family currently. And my husband works a normal 9 to 5, and I work 3 days a week as a business owner. I'm a certified professional life coach, and my niche is go getter Christian women who are typically a little bit overwhelmed, especially because they're so driven and have so much they want to accomplish, but who just really want some help to really live life intentionally and on purpose, not just for their own sake, but really for others and for the kingdom of God.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that's such a needed area. Like, I think that there are a lot of Christian women these days who they have that drive, they have these goals and these dreams, but I think that it is easy to kind of fall into maybe some unhealthy patterns of
Mm.
busyness or distractions. So, can you kind of tell me a little bit about how did you even get started as being a coach for go-getter Christian women? Like, what did that even look
Yeah.
like for you? And what is your heart behind it? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, yeah. I started vlogging in early 2014, not necessarily with the intent to start a business from that, but mostly because I felt like I wanted to share honestly with people what a mess my life was. And if you know me, you know that I have rheumatoid arthritis, and I was really in the thick of a lot of intense things related to that and with my health. And I was in a job that I was really excited about. My background is in nonprofit fundraising and communications. And I was in basically my dream job, but I was super stressed out and struggling with anxiety. And my therapist basically said, you need to either go on medication or quit your job. And so I was just in a very challenging place in life and just amazed at how many people still thought that I had it all together. So I basically started blogging just to be like, my life is hard. It's not going well. And I'm fighting for joy in the midst of this and kind of sharing some things that I was doing or things I was learning in books or whatever. And it took off a lot more than I expected. And I started getting opportunities to get paid to write here and there. And ultimately, that kind of unexpectedly led to becoming certified as a life coach because I started realizing, okay, I'm not the only woman out there who is really passionate about the Lord, but also really passionate about personal growth and goal setting and like time management and things like that. So I thought, like, what if I could kind of combine those things and serve these women who are believers, but who also want to work on some of these things, but don't want someone like going about the goal setting and that kind of stuff in like a weird earthly or woo woo kind of way. So yeah, so I got certified, and yeah, it's been about 5 years now since I've been full time in this business, and God has done all of the work, and he's totally exceeded my expectations. It's been really rewarding and really fun.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm picturing right now, like, when women come to you, I imagine that a lot of them are feeling like, again, like they have this drive, they have these dreams, but I feel like a lot of them are just looking for that cheerleader, that
Mm,
encouragement, that accountability, and also
hmm.
the clarity to know like what's working for them, what's not. Like what does God want them to do? How does he want them to set up their lives so that they're being productive, but they're also staying restful and staying rooted in
Yes,
him? So, can you
yes.
maybe kind of break down what are some of the struggles do you see Christian women facing today and maybe even what sort of spiritual warfare or lies can be behind those struggles?
Yeah, yeah. I can get on a pedestal and speak passionately for a long time about how I think that distraction and busyness and the abundance and fullness of our lives in modern day America in particular is one of great Satan's greatest weapons
Mm,
against the kingdom of God in this era. And I just fear that that like women in particular of our generation will get to the end of our lives and look back, and not that we will look back and be like, oh wow, I totally forgot about God, look, I've been an atheist for 30 years or anything crazy like that, but that we'll look back and be like, wow, like I never really taught my kids how to pray or spent time over God's word with them. I never really cultivated the kind of community with my neighbors that I wanted to. And I don't even know if they knew the Lord, things like that, because we were so distracted by a lot of good things that just weren't the best things. So I think distraction is a huge tool. And I think there's just a lot of like, in addition to the tangible fullness of our lives in terms of possessions and schedules, etc., there's just a lot of mindset wars that we are battling. And whether you want to say that that comes from us or the world or from Satan, I don't know. It's probably a combination of all those things. But I mean, as moms, we often resign ourselves to the fact that we just need to survive motherhood and there's nothing more we can do and we're just going to be a hot mess. And that's not biblical. We tend to think that other women are doing more than us. I hear this all the time from my clients. They all think that other people are getting more done or doing better. I can guarantee you every single woman is dropping the ball in certain areas, either intentionally or unintentionally. A lot of women feel like they're failing, like they're letting everyone down. And interestingly, oftentimes that's the result of expectations or standards that they've designed and assumed rather than explicit expectations, but they feel like they're failing, they're not a good enough mom, they're letting their kids down, they're not, whatever, all the things. Um, there's also this lie that as moms, you should be savoring every moment, savor every moment because it goes so fast. And the reality is, you're not going to, like, not every moment is precious in this broken world and as a mom. And when you think that, when you feel like, I should always be positive, I should always feel abundantly grateful for these children or for my life, even when it's crazy, that creates a lot of guilt and shame when, for example, like in my life yesterday, my 2-year-old spilled tea on himself and on the vintage mid-century modern sofa that was handed
Oh
down to us
no.
from Kyle's grandparents.
Oh
And,
no.
like, okay, in that moment, I'm not like, oh, I love motherhood. This is so great. I mean, by the grace of God, I didn't lose it or get as crazy and worked up as I maybe could have. But so anyway, I think that's something too that, like, sometimes we just need to let life feel hard or let motherhood feel a little bit hard without spiraling into this horrible place about it. But, when we're creating more guilt and shame over the fact that we're not in this perfectly, happy, positive place all the time, it's just like a vicious perpetuating cycle. And then I think there's just a lot of this, especially if you are an Enneagram 1 like me. I already brought up the Enneagram, look at like 5 minutes
I
in.
love it. I love it.
Sorry, not sorry. But depending on how God has wired you, for a lot of women too are just always wondering, am I doing it right? Like, someone tell me how I'm supposed to be doing all these things, and like, I want a rubric and I want to know if I'm doing it right, and I'm constantly questioning if I'm doing it right, especially as I compare myself to other women and I see how they're making different choices in schooling for their kids or what their work life looks like, and do they have childcare or not, are they working or not, how are they parenting, etc. And that can be exhausting and crippling, and again bring up so much guilt and shame. Or in the flip side, it can create pride if we think we're doing it right and other people aren't. And the reality is that we have so much freedom in Christ, and you can make such a wide range of choices. Obviously, some things are not a good idea and are outside of God's bounds, but within the boundaries that we have as New Testament believers, we have so much freedom, we have so many choices, and it would just do us and our families and the people around us a whole lot of good if we stop being so hard on ourselves and so critical of, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do it this way, or, maybe I should do it like this other person. And instead, just like be in communion with the Lord and try to live out the unique values and circumstances He's given you the best you can, and just trust that it's probably going to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And a few things that you said really resonated with me. One is that there's a group of women who are struggling right now with feeling like a failure or feeling like
Mm.
they're letting people down, letting themselves down, maybe even letting God down. And I just kind of wonder, like, what kind of words of encouragement or even like practical strategies or tips would you suggest to a mom who's in that season right now of feeling like she's a failure in some sort of capacity?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's helpful to just consider, to start with, like, just because you may feel like a failure doesn't mean that you are. I mean, we, like, as believers, we know that we are free, and yet we still live as if we aren't free and kind of enslave ourselves. So, try, if you can, to separate that feeling of failure from the truth, from the reality in your life. And it helps to be honest with yourself in those things. Like, we, in our heads, we tend to preach to ourselves these very distorted, very untrue things that are not helpful about, I'm the worst mom in the world, whatever, like those kind of extreme things that when you say them out
Right.
loud, they sound ridiculous, but inside we do entertain those thoughts and we don't really challenge them. And so sometimes then like the world's antidote to that, or like attempted antidote, is to be like, don't say that to yourself. You're the best mom ever. Or, these things that also aren't, they swing so far to the opposite side that they
Yeah.
also aren't necessarily true. And it's like I've heard another life coach say before, like, you can tell yourself if you are extremely overweight, you can tell yourself all day long, I'm skinny, I'm skinny, I'm skinny. If that's just not actually true, that's not really going to make a difference for you. What's going to be helpful for you if you're feeling like a failure as a mom is not to tell yourself things that are not true, but to like preach to yourself, to speak to yourself with compassion and acknowledging that, yeah, you're not perfect. And yeah, you do need Jesus. And and at the same time that you are probably not as bad as you think you are, and that you are making steps in the right direction. Like, okay, yeah, you know what? That was not, I did not honor God in the way that I responded to my kids today. Like that's not how I want to. That's not the model that I want to give them. But like God gave me a great opportunity to show them how to say sorry and ask for their forgiveness. Or, you know what? I thought to say sorry and I don't normally do that. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Or
Mm.
like I am really thankful for these things that are going really well in motherhood. So even if this area is something that I really could improve on some, like God is still really working in these other areas. You know what I mean? So it's not
Yeah.
like, you're not preaching to yourself like, don't think that way. You're perfect and beautiful and you're the best mom ever and your kids are going to all turn out perfectly. And, they're like, that's no, that's not true. Being realistic, I think, is really helpful. Um, and if you feel like a failure, I think it helps to pinpoint to what what makes me say that. Like we feel these very general feelings sometimes like overwhelm or failure or anxiety. And if we want to move forward in addressing some of those things, it helps to really understand where they're coming from so that we know then more specifically how we can move forward. And I always say like there are two main ways to shift the way that you feel about something, to change something. You can change your circumstances. So, if you feel like you're a failure because your house is a mess, for example, you could change that circumstance by picking up your house. Those are very obvious things to do. Like, okay, or I feel like a failure because whatever. I'm not like making effort in my appearance for my husband. Okay, you could put some makeup on or something. But we can also change the way that we feel about something just by changing our mindset. And I think that's a
Mm.
really beautiful and powerful tool, especially as a mom when you have little kids, because you're not always going to be able to, like, we don't have control of our lives ever, but especially not when your kids are really little. You definitely don't have control and complete control. And so when you can't take some actions to change the circumstances of something, we know that through Christ, we have the ability to to think and feel differently about something, even if that thing doesn't change at all. Even if it doesn't get better or we can't do anything about it, we can still feel differently. And the way to do that is not some like, here's a magic answer I can give you in 30 seconds. I mean, anyone who's done mindset work knows that it takes effort, even as a believer. And the Bible is full of good stuff to help you with that. Not to mention that there are so many excellent books and strategies written by believers and non-believers to help you navigate some of that stuff. But one thing that's helpful for me if I'm and other many other people I know, if I'm feeling a certain emotion that is negative, to pinpoint what is the thought that's causing me to feel that way based on the circumstance. And then to try to, and this is kind of like loosely based on the self coaching model, which is from Brooke Castillo. And then to try to think what is a thought that I can think about that circumstance that is actually true that's going to help me to feel the way that I want to feel instead. So if I'm feeling bitter or I'm feeling like a failure or whatever it is, like, first of all, what is the thought that I'm thinking that's creating that feeling and emotion in me? And then what is a thought that I could think instead that's going to instead help me feel encouraged or empowered or confident or peaceful or joyful? And the trick with that is it has to be something that you can actually believe. Because again, to tell yourself, like, I'm the best mom in the world. Okay, there's a lot of moms in the world. You're probably not the best mom in the world. But to tell yourself something that's true and that you can actually believe does start to shift the way that you feel about something, even if the circumstance is exactly the same. And then amazingly, how we're feeling about something tends to seep into our action. So if we feel like a failure, we feel stressed, we tend to take action then that perpetuates that cycle. Whereas if we feel calm, confident, peaceful, whatever, that's going to seep into our actions and then likely create, some positive momentum toward more positive thoughts and feelings and actions, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I love about what you're saying is that, like, that in essence is taking your thoughts captive. And I feel
Yes.
like we see this said in scripture. We see things like, set your mind on things above, but we don't
Yeah.
really know what that looks like in action, or we don't understand the importance of it to that, to
Hmm.
the degree that it is. So, what I just love what you're sharing about, like, paying attention to those thoughts that you're having behind, the reason behind your feeling as a failure or feeling of maybe discontentment, like whatever it is that you're feeling, like what are the thoughts that you're telling yourself? And I just think there really is so much power in replacing those thoughts and preaching
Hmm.
the truth to yourself. How can we be an encouragement and be a source of truth and life for our families and for our friends and for our community if we don't first know how to preach to ourselves and to speak truth over ourselves. So I love what you're sharing about all of that, and I so know how important that must be for the women that you work with, because I think that we all have these thought patterns that we need to deal with at some point.
Hmm. Yeah. And
Definitely.
I'll make a plug that has no benefit to me whatsoever. But for Jenny Allen's book that is coming out in, I think it's January of 2020, I have an advanced copy of it and it's called, oh my gosh, what is it called? Get Out of Your Head. I think I'm getting that right.
Ooh, I like that.
So if you, yeah, like I said, I mean, there are a lot of books you can read on this topic of mindset and your thoughts and kind of taking your thoughts captive. And some of them are by believers and some aren't and whatever. But I heard her give a talk in the book. And like I said, I have, and I was blessed to get an early copy. And I think it is going to be a game changer. And I feel like it's going to become one of those books that I recommend to everyone and like profusely. So, so if you're listening to
Ooh,
this and you're
yeah.
like, how do I start to take my thoughts captive? She literally talks about that in her book in a super practical way, and she put a lot of work into the science behind it all. So,
I
yeah.
love that. I'm definitely going to be checking that one out. Thank you for that recommendation. I love it.
Yeah. Do you
Uh,
know who Jenny Allen is?
yes, I do. I do.
Okay. Okay.
She's behind If, is that right? If
Yes.
Gathering?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I feel
am
like
familiar.
everyone either has either like everyone I talk to, Christian women, they either have never heard of her or they're like, oh my gosh, I love Jenny Allen. She is such a gift.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
if
I
you're
listen.
listening to this and you're like, who is this person? Like, just go look her up.
Yeah, well, she also has a podcast that I listen to, and I'm all
Yes.
about
Yes.
podcasts. So odds are, if they have a podcast, I've heard of them, I know of them, and
Yeah.
I love them. That is how that works. So that is awesome. Let's talk a little bit about motherhood, because I know
Yeah.
that you've been in this motherhood journey while also being a achiever, being a
Yeah.
coach, being this phenomenal Christian go-getter woman, as you've said. And just talk to me a little bit about how motherhood has shaped your work as a coach.
Mm. Yeah. It's probably shaped it in many, many ways that I can't even think of all at this exact moment. But it has definitely it has shaped my work in the sense that it has helped me create boundaries for my work, which have been very healthy for me, an achiever and someone who enjoys my work. Because before I had a kid, I just spent a lot of my free time working. It wasn't in an unhealthy way. It wasn't at the expense of my marriage or other relationships, but it's like, well, if my husband's working late or it's a Saturday and he's out fishing, why don't I just work? So motherhood has shaped my work in the sense that it's caused me to create boundaries and to stick to those and to be like what I know people have very different setups, and I know you, Jesse, are like crushing it at the fringe hours, kind of fitting in the work time. But it has been really healthy for me to have 4 o'clock on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday be the end of my work day, and then to allow my brain, not just my body, but allow my brain to really shift into my personal life and just
Mm.
be in that space. That's really healthy. And I wish it's something that I had done better before I had my son, to just be like, okay, this is the non work time. I guess my husband and I did. We were Sabbathing and taking Sundays off before we had a kid, but still. So I've loved the boundaries and just having a little bit more of that like set time aside from work, which is so healthy and so productive. I think it's also motherhood has also made me more creative with my work and more intentional in my work, because when you when there is a lack of anything, it creates creativity and resourcefulness. So, a lack of time, what feels like a lack of time or less time, because I cut my work hours basically in half after having my son, but didn't really change much in my business and still had the expectation to bring in the same amount of income. That has definitely caused me slash us, my team, to be really creative and what we say yes to and no to, how we go about things, how I get help from people and things.
Yeah, definitely.
Another thing that comes to mind related to motherhood and work is I feel like being a mom and choosing to still work to some extent while being a mom reinforces and strengthens your sense of vocation. Because if you are going to take time away from your kids or use precious nap time hours to work or whatever it is, you have to it well, you don't have to, but it helps a lot to feel like there is purpose behind that, and you see God's works in your work, and you see how you are co-laboring with God. And so I'd be lying if I said that I don't ever feel a little bit guilty or sad that I work and that my kid goes to my neighbor's house 3 days a week for daycare and all that. I mean, even literally this morning, which this is rare because he loves going to Miss Sherry's house, but literally this morning, he was like, I don't want to go to Miss Sherry's house today. I want to stay home with mommy. And oh, I mean, that's like a dagger to the heart. That could totally have spiraled downward into I could have let the enemy turn that into this icky thing and me feeling guilty and shaming myself for work and why am I doing this? I shouldn't be doing this. I'm going to like take next week off, or I'm going to pull my kid out of daycare and quit my business or whatever. But thank you, Holy Spirit. In that moment, he gave me like that sense of vocation and purpose in that work, to be like, I get to teach my kid that work is a good thing, that work can be a beautiful thing, and that we get to work alongside with God and we get to serve people. And so we try really hard in our house to not say, for my husband or me, oh, I have to work. I have to go to work. Or to say to our son, you have to go to Miss Sherry's house today, or whatever it is. We try to say, I get to work. And I tell my son, I get to help people today. I get to use the gifts that God has given me. He's 2, so I don't know how much he understands, but like I get to use the gifts that God has given me and I get to help people. I get to serve people. And as much as my work isn't blatant ministry, like I'm not Jenny Allen or Lisa Turkhurst or something, um, again, being a mom and having that time away from my kid has like helped me be more clued into the fact that any kind of work you do, whether you are working or you're not working, like whatever the work is, can be done to the glory of God. And that is an okay and healthy thing to teach my kid and to show him that, especially because he's a boy. So he's probably going to be working full time someday. He's probably going to be leaving his kids at home, either with a daycare provider or with his wife. And so I want him to grow up seeing me find that God given purpose in my work, and for him to be able to have that too.
I love that. I love that. In our house, when I'm saying goodbye to my kids and they're going off on an outing with their dad, or if I'm taking time away upstairs while they're all playing downstairs, and sometimes, my eldest, she's almost 3, and she'll say, "Mommy, I want you to come too." But what we
Yeah.
say is, "Well, mommy helps other mommies joy," and just like I know that she
Yeah.
doesn't fully get it, but it's almost not so much for her as it is for me, because
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that, yeah, like we need those reminders, just like what you said, like we need those reminders that what we're doing it's all for the glory of God. It's a ministry in and of itself that is beautiful, that's powerful, and it matters. And I fully believe that the work that you're doing with these women, it matters because just like going back to what we said earlier, there are a lot of lies that are out there in the world. There's a lot of spiritual warfare that Christian women are facing today. And I think that
Mm,
there needs to be those voices like yours that are saying, no, 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 there's a better way. Like God has something different for you, and I want to help you
mm,
reach what God has for you, and fight those lies with the truth. So I just
mhm.
I just love the work that you're doing. I love the passion behind it because clearly you have a love for it, and you're very gifted at it. Um, Tell me a little bit about, I know you mentioned that, you've worked on setting boundaries, and I know that one thing you've done somewhat recently is you've done an experiment with being social media free in your business. So
Mhm.
I know that since then, you've kind of come back on as far as like Facebook and such, but you're completely off of Instagram, and I am fascinated by this. So can you maybe tell me like what led you to make that decision to try that experiment, and then also what fruit came out of it?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it was April of 2019 that I decided that we were going to take 3 months off completely and just test it out and see how it went and reevaluate from there. And it just kind of came out of constantly feeling like I was dreading anything related to social media in my business. I pretty much always have. And also feeling like I was just failing at it all the time. Again, going back to cutting my work time in half, like, so, you have to change some things. You have to adjust your expectations if you're going to try to work half as much and still bring in the same amount of income. And so, yeah, social media just felt like this thorn in my side, like this perpetual nagging thing that wouldn't go away. And I know for some women, they love it. It's really life giving, whatever. That's awesome. I think that's great. But yeah, it just always felt like the last thing I wanted to do. I never felt like I was doing it well enough. And also it didn't seem to be something that was really driving that much business or value or anything for our followers. And like I'm super focused on my email list and providing really, really good content there. And yeah, and it just wasn't, I didn't know for sure, but I didn't think that it was critical to the success of our business. And I'm a huge believer in not just doing what everyone else is doing just because they're doing it. And so I was like, okay, why does almost everyone, think that they have to do social media? I've heard my clients say this over and over. I just struggle so much with Instagram, or really don't like Instagram, or I really don't like Facebook or whatever, but I don't have a choice. And that's not true. We always have a choice. There might be consequences to that choice, but we always have a choice. So I was like, well, we're never going to know if social media is critical to our business if we don't just try going without it. So we just stopped posting for 3 months. And I should say, I have someone on my team who even helps me post stuff on social media. And I still felt like we were failing, and like I wasn't showing up and engaging enough, or I would try to go on and respond to DMs, and then I would watch Instagram stories for 20 minutes or something. And so yeah, so we went off completely for 3 months, and then ended up deciding that we were going to stay off of Instagram, and but then continue to use Facebook. We don't really post on Facebook that much, but we did realize, almost all of our email list growth, almost all of our email subscribers come from Facebook ads. And if we don't have a Facebook page, we can't run Facebook ads. So we decided to keep the Facebook page. And I'm still not quite sure what I'm going to do with my Facebook group, but I think that probably might go away. So the fruit of it has been just more time, feeling like less of a failure. Because I think if there's something in your life that you perpetually feel like you are dropping the ball on, first of all, evaluate that thing and see if it really is important to you or not. If it's not, then just let it go. But um, if it is important to you, then either then figure out a way to do that thing well so you don't keep feeling like a failure at it, or figure out how to make that thing not care so much to you so that you can let go of it. So, like I
Mm.
said, I just kept feeling like I'm not doing this well, I'm not doing this well. And we kept trying all these different things and all these different approaches, and I hired someone to help, and I just still didn't feel like it was making a difference, making much of a difference, or like we were really doing it successfully. So maybe that's just me and my high standards as an Enneagram one. But so yeah, so I don't feel I have more time. I don't feel like I'm always behind on Instagram responses, etc. And my favorite thing I would say is just that I don't feel like I have to live life with what I call my Instagram goggles on. And again, I know for a lot of people this does not bother them, but I think I just am a person who likes to compartmentalize things a little bit in my life. And so to go about my day to day life, being out and about with my son or whatever it may be, like eating my breakfast and constantly thinking, oh, is there a photographic moment in this? Oh, that wall and my son's outfit are my brand colors. So I need to take a picture of him before we go into the doctor's office and like put it on Instagram later. You know what I mean? I just struggled so much with that. So, it's nice to just kind of be able to turn that off and not have to not have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, definitely. And I get what you're saying about the Instagram goggles because I find myself living life with those goggles on sometimes, and I like to give myself a couple days where I'm just like, I'm just not gonna post today, you know?
Yeah,
I
that's
like
good.
to live out of the mentality that, what's meant for me, what God has planned for me will happen regardless of whether or not I'm posting at the right times or posting the
Right?
right amount to my
Yeah.
story. So I think
Yeah,
that a lot of it does come down to like, what do you put your faith and your trust in? And I love just
it
hearing the
is.
fruit that's come out of that experiment through that decision. I just think that's really amazing and very, very inspiring. And I'm wondering if anyone listening today is maybe thinking, I gotta try that for myself even. So thank you for sharing that with us. Can you tell the listeners where they can find you since, you're not on Instagram, but tell them about how they can get on your email list and all the ways that they can find you.
Yeah, yeah. So email is by far the best place to follow me, and I love sending out super practical and super valuable tips and encouragement for go-getter Christian women who are on my email list. So if you want to hop on there, you can go to dianakerr.com/workbook, and we'll send you a free workbook about lies that Christian women believe about time and some truths that'll help set you free, and that'll get you on our list as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for just taking the time to share your heart with us and for being an encouragement to whoever's listening today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jesse.